Today I'll be showing you how I turn my portfolio into a physical Game Boy game. But first, some context. About a year ago, I made a 3D portfolio website where people can learn more about me by playing on a Game Boy. Here's what that looks like. So here's a quick rundown of what the website looks like. I was debating on sharing the code for it and kind of going through each aspect of it, but I haven't touched this in about a year, and I can only imagine what that looks like, and I'm not super proud of it. So I will not be sharing that, but I will be going through some of the elements of kind of how it was made for some parts of it. So yeah, we can hit continue in the welcome header and you're put into a 3D bedroom where you can look around. And if you click on the computer, you get shown kind of what my current portfolio looks like, the non 3D version. And you can visit that just by clicking this up here. Otherwise, if you go back and hit the Game Boy, you are met with a little controls pop up for if you're on mobile or desktop. And if you decide to go on here and you're on mobile, I will say there's a pretty noticeable bug where this Game Boy screen will not be attached to the Game Boy on many devices. So I apologize for that. I've tried many things to try and fix it. I can't seem to figure it out. So maybe a full refactor will help that out. But yeah, you can play the Game Boy. You can click on the buttons to like play it, or you can use some keyboard controls. You can change the settings for it. I try to make these as realistic as possible. So if you have a dim lamp, then you can't really see the screen that well because the Game Boy screen sucks in low lighting. But if you were to mod the screen, then it would appear much better. So just adding fun stuff like that was pretty cool. But yeah, after dwelling on this for like a year, I'm like, wouldn't this be cool to have like a physical copy? You know, who wouldn't want a physical copy of this? I don't think it really serves much of a purpose, but I think it would be cool. And so I set out to make it. And that's what this video is about. So let's get started. Oh, I was going to mention how some of this was made. The whole thing is made using 3JS. The game was made in GB Studio, which is a software for making Game Boy games. And these were put on here using a thing called CSS 3D renderers, I believe, which this is going to be a terrible explanation. I'm probably wrong, but this is how I think of it. It's like you can display HTML, CSS, and JS files within the 3JS plane, and you can like edit their positions and stuff. So I can put this HTML file just right on top of this laptop object, and the same with the Game Boy. So I just exported the Game Boy Studio files as a web folder, which gives me the HTML, CSS, and JS, and then put it in a CSS 3D renderer and just put it on top of the Game Boy object. So that's just a little kind of preview on how I made this. But yeah, now we'll get started. So I have several Game Boys that I could technically use for this, but I was recording a repair for one of my consoles, and this is what happened after I turned it on. What? So the repair I did prior to this was just a fuse replacement. It wouldn't power on at all before, so I was happy to see that it would at least turn on. And since it seemed like only the display was messed up, I assumed that there was probably just a problem with the ribbon cable. So here you see me opening up the console so I can essentially just unplug it and replug it back in. I was getting pretty tired of working on the console at this point because I had already botched the fuse replacement one time and I had to reorder a new one, so I was really hoping this worked and I could finally be done with it. So here I just powered it on quickly to see if it initially looked good before I screwed everything down and gave it one last final test. Look at that. Oh man. Future me here. Originally I didn't record this part, but looking back it's a pretty important part of the project, and so I thought I should probably go through some of the steps on how it's made. I also don't have any footage of me creating this because I made it like a year ago, so this will just be another brief rundown of how everything works. But the first thing that I needed was a pixel art tool editor, and Sprite was a highly recommended one, and so this is the one that I picked up. I thought it was a pretty easy tool to use, and so I'd recommend it. The next thing that I needed was some assets. And while I could have made everything by myself, I'm not that talented, so I went on itch.io, and there are many different free assets that you can get from here. There are also some paid ones, but I just stuck with free ones and gave credit within the game. Now we can go to GB Studio, where the whole game was made, and this start screen is something that I made in Sprite, just kind of drawing it out. I didn't really have a plan going into it, but I just made this guide drawing some graffiti with the press start, and I think it turned out pretty cool. And then this red arrow on here represents the initial character, kind of where they are. And right now I just have them as a transparent actor because you don't see any characters on the main screen. So you hit start, and then it takes you into the first technical screen, which is a bedroom. And you can see this line that goes between scenes, which is kind of helpful to show the interactions between each one. So I'll land here after the user hits enter. So now that you're in this bedroom scene, all of this red is area that the user cannot go in, and these purple things are interactions that the user can click on, and different things will happen based on the interaction. And then this yellow down here is if the user walks into it, something else will happen, and so I just have it changing the scene and going to a next room down. And so most of these triggers just kind of show different dialogue, but this one takes you into a computer type screen, which is where the user can then go over to each of these different files and folders and kind of learn more about me. So looking at this scene, for example, I got this computer icon image off of itch.io, and then it also had this little notepad image, so I put those on top of each other, and then I just drew on all of these letters to make the text. I think that there's an easier way to make text. You can probably just type it out, but I didn't think it looked that good when I did it, and so I just drew a letter for all of this. But yeah, that's all there is for this part. I wish I had some footage of me actually making this so it would be a little more clear, but I hope I got kind of the main ideas across. So the next step was to create a label for the cartridge. And as you can tell by some of these initial sketches, I am not a graphic designer by any means. I was kind of just trying to sketch out different ideas I had, like me sitting at a computer, coding, and messing around with the text. But as you can see, none of it really looked that good. Eventually I had the idea of using a bunch of dots to try and make like a early 2000s robotic futuristic type of look to the label. And so I had the vision of like half of my face made out of dots and then see if I could run with that somehow. This process ended up taking a lot longer than it should have because I couldn't figure out something that I truly liked. I had the idea of doing like a half my face, half skull, and a brain type of look, and so that's kind of what you see I was going for here. And then it was just many more hours of fiddling around, trying to figure out all the last details to see how I wanted it. I didn't record anything on the third day because this was taking way too long, but I pretty much just changed some more colors and moved some things around, and so I have the final version, which looks like this, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So it's currently 12:10 at night, and I'm asking myself, could I be doing things like leak code? That would probably be a better use of time. Yep. Could I be working on a side project that isn't this? Yep. But does that get me any closer to having a Game Boy version of my portfolio? No. So here I have two little label prototypes that I made. This one is laminated, and I feel like it came out a bit too thick for my liking and too shiny, and it also doesn't have a sticky back, so probably won't be using that one. This one is just made of paper with some tape over it, which I feel like I like the gloss on that a little bit better, but it also doesn't have a sticky back. And so I purchased some sticker paper and am gonna try cutting some out, maybe put some tape over some to see how that looks, or maybe I can just use it how it is. Doesn't look too bad. Still feel like it's a little too shiny, but so I've got these 5, and I made some mock-ups of how it would look on different shells. And on my first purchase, I bought Game Boy Color shells because I like Game Boy Color the most, but then I realized that the game is not actually a Game Boy Color game. It is just an original Game Boy game, so that wouldn't make sense to be in a color cartridge. So I made another purchase of some more shells, but they did not have any clear ones in stock, and so we have clear black, gray, and white. And from the little preview images I made, I think I'm going to go with the white, but I will put them on to see what they look like on each of them. What are we thinking? What are we thinking? I think I still like the white the best. Clear black's cool, but I think we're going to go with the white one here. Now it is whether I do a gloss label or not. I don't know, the gloss one just seems kind of shiny, does not? Like, too shiny? Let me get a regular Game Boy card for comparison. Like this. Like, it has some shine to it, but it's nowhere near as like what tape would give. So I don't know. I think we'll just go with the matte for now. Why not? And the toughest part of this is actually cutting the corners so they're all symmetrical. This one isn't too bad. Might just be the one. So in order to flash the ROM onto the actual cartridge, I had to get a device called the Burnmaster from Funny Playing, but it is in many parts and you have to assemble it yourself. And I do not know how to do that, so I have the instructions pulled up and I will assemble that right now. I forgot to mention this is actually just the card for the game, which I can probably just put in right now. Just sits in here like that. Then I can put the top on and then I'll screw it down later. But that should be all I need to do for this card. Okay, so now this is built, I believe I need a micro SD card now. So I'm gonna go find one of those. So my audio is pretty choppy for this part, so I'll just describe each step that I did. So since my game is in GB Studio, I just hit Game, Export As, and Export ROM. And then you can just copy this game.gb file and then head over to your micro SD card and paste it in here. I don't believe it's a requirement to rename the file, but I decided to anyways just because. And then once I finished typing this in, I closed out of everything because that is all there is for this step. So I've got everything here. I figured now is probably a decent time. I could just put the screw in the Game Boy game now. And now we can put the SD card into the Burn Master. And then we can put in the cartridge. Like that. Turn it on. In this case, there are settings on the back. Since it's a Game Boy game, it'll be on the top setting. And then, I don't know how well this picks it up, but we're going to choose Game Boy at the top. Keep going, and then we're going to flash a GBC cart. Keep going, flash cart, and then choose the Dawson's Portfolio, in this case .gb file. And then it will erase whatever on the cart, and then flash the new game. Hit OK, and you're done. Here we go. Final moment of truth. Last test. Will the game actually work? The only thing that matters at the end of the day. If it doesn't work, I'd be very upset. After seeing it next to the clear black Game Boy, I feel like I maybe should have done the clear black Game Boy shell for the cartridge, but whatever. Here we go. Let's put it in, turn on the power, and pray. It's a good sign so far. And there it is. Oh my gosh. Even she's excited. There I am. I suppose I didn't actually say anything about the actual game itself. There's not much to do in it. It's just kind of walking around an apartment. There's Mabel, as you saw on the bench 2 seconds ago. If you catch her, gives a little meow. Otherwise, all you can really do is just go over to the computer and kind of learn stuff about me, like my projects and stuff. So yeah, there's not too much to do, but I'm just so happy it works. So it only took me until the end of recording to realize that my audio has been low this whole time. So I'll make sure to speak right into the microphone at the end. But yeah, thanks for watching. I had a lot of fun making this project. I think that it turned out really good. I'm really happy with it. I think it's pretty sick. I'm sure these are the projects that are really going to jumpstart my career into tech, right guys? Anyways, thanks for watching. I don't think I'll be posting much in the future, but if I think of something that I think is worth sharing, then I will maybe make a video about it. So yeah, thanks. Goodbye.